The family meeting was scheduled for Sunday afternoon, and that should have been my first warning. My father only called family meetings after he had already made a decision. The meeting was never about discussing anything. It was about announcing what everyone else was expected to accept. I sat on my mother's floral sofa with a cup of coffee while my younger brother, Eric, paced around the living room looking unusually pleased with himself. Dad cleared his throat. "Thank you all for coming. We need to discuss the apartment downtown." I already knew which apartment he meant. It was the 2-bedroom apartment at 1247 Westbrook. My grandfather had bought the building years ago, and I had been living there for the past 4 years. I paid all the utilities and handled everything connected to the property. Dad folded his hands. Eric and Shannon are expecting a baby. They need more space than their 1-bedroom apartment offers. You have 2 bedrooms all to yourself. I use the 2nd bedroom as my office, I replied. I work from home 3 days a week. You can work from a coffee shop, Mom said casually. Dad nodded. Eric needs the apartment more than you do. We've decided you'll move out by the end of the month. That gives you 4 weeks. I stared at him. You've decided. The family has decided, he corrected. Eric smiled. Come on, Cassie. You're single. You have a good job. And you can afford another place. Shannon and I need room for the baby. Shannon added. Eric told me you make good money. I frowned. My salary isn't anyone else's business. When family property is involved, it is, Dad answered. I took a slow breath. Can I see the trust documents? Mom waved her hand. Your father manages everything. I'd still like to read them. Dad's face hardened. This discussion is over. I stood up. Then I'd like written documentation showing your authority to remove me from the apartment. It's not an eviction, Mom protested. It's family helping family. If that's true, I replied. There shouldn't be any problem showing me the paperwork. I left before anyone could stop me. By the time I reached my apartment, my phone was filled with angry messages accusing me of being selfish. Instead of answering them, I unlocked my filing cabinet. 4 years earlier, my grandfather had asked to see me alone in the hospital. He looked tired, but his mind was completely clear. He squeezed my hand. Cassie, I'm changing the trust. I told him he should rest. He shook his head. Listen carefully. The apartment building is going to you. I looked at him in surprise. Dad thinks he'll control everything, but he never reads the details. Why are you giving it to me? He smiled. Because you're the only one. Whoever asked me what I wanted instead of telling me what I should do? 2 weeks later, he passed away. A month after that, his attorney sent me the final documents. The building no longer belonged to the family trust. It belonged entirely to me. All 6 apartments, including the one I lived in. Grandpa had been right. Dad never noticed the change. For 4 years, he believed he owned the building through the trust while I quietly managed everything. I collected rent from the other tenants, paid property taxes, handled repairs, replaced old equipment, and improved the building whenever something needed attention. The rental income covered every expense and still left money for future repairs. The property had become worth more than $2 million. And now my family wanted to throw me out of my own building. The next morning, I called my attorney. After hearing the story, she laughed. They don't know you own it, no. And your father has no legal documents proving he controls the property. None. Then he has absolutely no authority. I explained that Eric had already started packing my belongings without asking. Her voice immediately became serious. He entered your apartment without permission. Yes, that's illegal. She asked one question. What do you want? I thought about years of being ignored, about Eric discussing my salary, about my parents making decisions for me without asking. I want clear legal boundaries. Good, she said. I'll handle it. 2 days later, my family received formal legal letters. The letters explained that I was the sole owner of the building. No one else had authority over the property. Any attempt to remove my belongings or force me out would be treated as illegal eviction and theft. Eric also received a notice ordering him to stay out of my apartment, Security cameras had recorded him entering the building several times using my mother's old emergency key. The following day, Dad called another family meeting. This time, no one looked confident. He pushed the lawyer's letter across the desk. Explain this. I own the building. He shook his head. That's impossible. Grandpa changed the trust before he died. Dad rushed to his filing cabinet and searched through old estate papers. After several minutes, he stopped. Mom quietly read one page. It says the building was transferred to Cassandra. The room fell silent. Eric finally spoke. Why didn't you tell us? Grandpa asked me not to. Dad looked stunned. You've been collecting rent? Yes, I've been managing the building for 4 years. Shannon looked worried. But we really need that apartment. There are other apartments available. We can't afford them. I'm sorry. Eric slammed his hand on the desk. This isn't fair. It is exactly what Grandpa wanted. Mom wiped away tears. So you're keeping the whole building? I'm keeping the property Grandpa legally left to me. If you'd like to rent one of the available apartments, you're welcome to apply. Dad stared at me. You expect me to pay rent to my own daughter. I expect every tenant to pay rent. How much? Market rate. Eric nearly shouted. That's ridiculous. No, I answered calmly. That's the current market. Dad tried another argument. You should share the rental income with the family. I looked at him. You inherited 3 other properties. You don't share your rental income with me. He had no answer. A few days later, I came home and found Eric inside my apartment again. Boxes were stacked everywhere. What are you doing? He smiled. Helping you move. I told you to stay out. We're moving in anyway. You need to leave. Or what? I'll call the police. He laughed. I pulled out my phone and dialed 911. Within minutes, officers arrived. After reviewing my ownership documents and the previous legal notice, they ordered Eric to leave immediately. They warned him that returning without permission would result in trespassing charges. That afternoon, I replaced every lock in the building and removed my family's access. The following week, my father filed a lawsuit. He claimed Grandpa had been mentally incapable of changing the trust. The case lasted 3 months. Grandpa's attorney testified. Doctors confirmed Grandpa had been mentally sharp. Every legal document had been properly signed and filed. Finally, the judge ruled. The transfer of 1247 Westbrook to Cassandra Morrison is completely valid. The petition is dismissed. Outside the courthouse, Dad stopped me. You're destroying this family. I shook my head. No, you are. Grandpa made his choice. You just refused to accept it. Within weeks, Eric and Shannon rented another apartment. Mom slowly started speaking to me again. Dad never admitted he had been wrong. I continued managing my building exactly as Grandpa had trusted me to do. 2 years later, another apartment became available. I offered it to Eric and Shannon at a discounted family rate. They refused. Their pride mattered more than the savings. That was their decision. Just as protecting my property had been mine, they had tried to give away a building they never owned. In the end, the court confirmed what Grandpa had decided years earlier. The apartment they wanted to take from me had always belonged to me.